Hi, this is Alec, and welcome back to my channel. Well, as you know, the anticipated trial at Alec Baldwin's manslaughter trial has started, and we had the details from the New York Times. Let's get into this. It says Alec Baldwin manslaughter trial begins. 4 takeaways from day one. So prosecutors portray the actor as a stubborn, disrespectful safety standard. Well, say knucklehead. While the defense said he had no reason to think there would be a live round on the set. So the stories by Julia Jacobs and Tim Bulk. You know, it's in New Mexico, of course. So Alec Baldwin's on trial and charged him in involuntary manslaughter for his role in the fatal shooting of a cinematography on the set of movie Rust. So the involuntary manslaughter trial of Alec Baldwin began on Wednesday. I'm tongue twisted today, with prosecutors painting him as a headstrong actor who repeatedly shirked his duty to maintain gun safety on the set of the movie Rust, while the defense argued that the death of the movie's cinematographer was a result of other crew members' faults. While Mr. Baldwin's lawyer framed the 2021 shooting of his cinematographer, Halyna Hutchins, as a tragic accident, the prosecutors worked to convince jurors that it was a direct result of Mr. Baldwin's recklessness while handling a dangerous weapon on the film set. Sitting at the defense table and between the two of his lawyers, Mr. Baldwin, wearing a suit, patterned tie, and thick frame glasses, might as well be framed, listened intensely, sometimes taking notes on a legal pad and looking somber as body cam footage of the aftermath of the shooting was shown. Supporters sitting behind him included his wife, Halyna Baldwin, and his brother, Stephen Baldwin. He had 4 key takeaways from the opening argument of the first day of Mr. Baldwin's manslaughter trial in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So the prosecutor would try to show the jurors that Mr. Baldwin repeatedly broke gun safety standards specifically to the movie industry. While there is no video of the precise moment of the fatal shooting, there is a trove of footage from earlier in the production. That footage, says Alec Baldwin, one of the special prosecutor arguing the case, would show that Mr. Baldwin made a practice of putting his fingers on or around the trigger when he should not have, a violation of Hollywood gun safety. So these movie sets safety rules require actors, just like the defendant, to treat every firearm as though it was loaded, to never point a firearm at another person, and to never put your finger on the trigger unless you're pre-prepared to shoot or destroy whatever's in front of you, Ms. Johnson said. Mr. Baldwin has said that shortly before the shooting, Ms. Hutchins has been helping to direct him on where to point the gun. The defense points to the armorer and the first assistant director as the people responsible for gun safety checks. Alec Sparrow, a lawyer for Mr. Baldwin, argued that there were people on the Rust set who were responsible for checking the guns that day, but that they did not include Mr. Baldwin. However, Hannah Reed, the armorer on the set, loaded the gun that day with 5 rounds that could not be fired, and 1 live round failed to catch the mistake. Dave Hall, the film's first assistant director, failed to inspect the gun and catch the live round. Mr. Baldwin assumed that the gun was cold, meaning it should have been impossible to fire, Mr. Sparrow said. That communication to the whole production that there was nothing in the gun that can hurt anybody, Mr. Sparrow said. Cold guns can't hurt people, he said. It's impossible, literally impossible. Well, this one did. Ms. Guerrero Reed, the armorer, was convicted earlier this year of involuntary manslaughter for loading a live round in the gun and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Mr. Hall agreed to a plea deal on charges of negligent use of a deadly weapon, avoiding prison time. Prosecutors are trying to present Mr. Baldwin as someone who follows his own direction. You know, his past is coming back to haunt him. To find Mr. Baldwin guilty of involuntary manslaughter, the jury must find that he acted with the willful disregard for the safety of others on the rust set. In seeking a conviction, the prosecution has argued that Mr. Baldwin did not adhere to instruction of the rust director, Joel Sullivan, on how to handle the gun just ahead of the fatal shooting. You will hear the director tell you that many times the defendant would do this on his own thing, Ms. Johnson said in court on Monday. Mr. Sousa, who was injured in the fatal shooting where the bullet passed through Ms. Hutchinson and struck him on the shoulder, had said that he had told Mr. Baldwin he wanted him to slowly pull the gun out of the holster, hold it at an angle, but the director disagreed, preferred to pull the gun out more quickly and dramatically. Just before the gun discharged, Ms. Johnson told the jury Mr. Baldwin twice followed his own preference and pulled the revolver out quickly. That third and final time, he took it out, and once again, fast hammer is cocked. He cocked the hammer, pointed straight at Miss Hutchinson, and fired that gun, sending the live round right into Miss Hutchinson's body, she said. The defense seemed to be allowing for the possibility that Mr. Baldwin pulled the trigger. Mr. Baldwin has vehemently denied pulling the trigger of the gun before it was fired, saying that he had pulled the hammer all the way back and let it go in an action that may have set it off. Prosecutors have sought to discredit that account, arguing that several rounds of forensic testing found that the gun could not have gone off without pulling the trigger. At trial, the actor's lawyer appeared to temper with that claim a bit, saying there was no witness to see Mr. Baldwin intentionally pull the trigger on the set of the day, but even if he did, his defense argued it would not be against the law to do so while filming a scene for a movie. On the movie set, you're allowed to pull the trigger, Mr. Spiro said in the court, so even if he intentionally pulled the trigger, like the prosecutor just demonstrated, it wouldn't make him guilty of homicide. Mr. Spiro warned the jury against deciding a case based on whether or not a defendant misspoke or said something that ended not being correct. Throughout his opening argument, Mr. Spiro sought to put jurors on mid-set of the film production, arguing that the gunfights in the movie rely on actors' ability to handle guns, assuming they are harmless props, not deadly weapons. To find out what happened on that movie set, you need to do something that the prosecutor could never do, Mr. Spiro said. You have to step back and remember what they were doing on a movie set. So here's the remaining stuff. The judge knows the outline of the case, having presided over the trial of the armorer. The prosecution accused Mr. Baldwin of numerous breach of safety, of firearm safety. Mr. Baldwin's defense team said they had no reason to think the gun had live ammunition. Mr. Baldwin's lawyer cannot cite argument prosecutors made at the trial of the armorer that could help their case, and how a misdemeanor plea deal fell apart to Alec Baldwin last year. So, yes, they did negotiate a deal last year, but it fell apart. So that's why this case is now proceeding, and the two other parties involved with the gun, one is serving 18 months in prison, the other one had a plea deal to avoid prison time. So Alec Baldwin is the next and last one to be facing the justice system here. As you may know, Alec Baldwin unfortunately has a history of doing stuff his own way and getting himself into trouble. And of course, he's well known as the actor who played Donald J. Trump on Saturday Night Live. Hate to see what happens if he ends up in prison. they might want him to do that character against his will. That's going to be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? So when I get more information, I'll put it on video about the case. So this is Alcan saying so long for now, and don't forget your style.